These intros are getting insane.
Getting insane. I thought they already were. I think we have to talk about that to start with, right?
Surely. Yeah, we should probably at least mention that.
Address the orange man in the room, so to speak.
I mean, the only thing I have to say about it is that like it's kind of a bit anticlimactic, but
interesting. Okay, explain that to me.
Because like he's not in a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And there's no footage of him getting dragged out of his house or something. And I presume he's out of jail already. Like he's went in.
It was like in Atlanta, and it was one of those things where the warrants were like issued, and they all pretty much willingly win.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, they were all gonna be arrested in the houses or anything like that, you know.
Yeah. The like even if it's anticlimactic, I still think the optics are gonna be bad for the Democrats, but maybe not as bad as it could have been.
100%. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's even just as like we're obviously a media studies podcast, of course, where we don't comment on anything political or anything philosophical or anything important, really. We're just media studies. But I do find it very interesting how this is literally going to be an album cover for some rapper. Some rapper's it's either going to be Drake or it's going to be Kanye or someone that's going to put this as an album cover. This is going to be on so many t-shirts. This is going to be on so many mugs and so many other things.
Yeah. It's definitely a moment. It's definitely a historical media moment. Like just that picture is like is the equivalent to like the Beatles walking on that Abbey Road place. Do you know that picture?
100%. Yeah.
Or like, you know, the picture of the girl at Vietnam who's covered in chemicals, Agent Orange. You know the picture?
I know the one. Yeah.
It's one of those
like Time magazine moments, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Although I wonder his face. Like, did he plan that facial expression? Because that's the perfect one to do.
Yeah, it's weird though, because most people's interpretations are like, oh, he's mean mugging the camera. This is all like planned and deliberate. But I can imagine them like just bringing you into a room and then, oh, look up here. All of a sudden, the photo's taken, and you don't even like get to like plan too much in the moment, maybe.
Unless the second he went in the room, he had the face just locked in. He's like, I am not changing facial expression until you take that photograph.
Maybe, I don't know. It's weird. It is weird to think, because like if you really think it goes that like far into his media strategy, then he would have like a team of people meeting him every week to like work on his mugshot expression, you know.
Yeah. I don't think he'd even need it, because he is like a media mogul, right? Or not a mogul, but he's like such a product of media that I think he wouldn't even need to have a team. He just know what to do in the moment, any moment. It's like that time he got off the plane and he was told somebody died, some singer, was it, or something? I don't know. And he just had this perfect response that only he could do. You know, he just knows what to do in the moment. He just has like an instinct for it. You know,
there's a weird thing about Trump is like, in a sense, he's like the most overproduced figure of all time, but yet he gets to say like weird stuff, and it seems to be like, I don't know, there seems to be like an exception for Trump for some reason. I don't know why there is. It's very strange.
I think he just has a knack for it. I think he just has a knack for spectacle in a way that most standard politicians don't.
Yeah, anyway, so one thing that I think is relevant is like his age versus Joe Biden's age.
He's pretty old himself, right? He's like 70 something.
Yes, I'm looking it up. He's 77, dude.
What?
That is not like, there's some fire in those eyes in that photo that do not belong to the 77-year-old.
I thought he might be like 67, maybe 71, maybe 72, pushing the most, but I didn't know he was 77.
People joke about like the adrenochrome, eternal life stuff on the other side, but
no, it's real. It's got to be.
Because, like I said, there are some fire in those eyes that do not belong to a 77-year-old. Like,
yeah, true.
Joe Biden's really old, isn't he? How old is he?
He's not that much older, actually. He's like 80.
Yeah, he's 80. Okay, he's 80. But I'll be honest with you, you know, if there was a wrestling match, I'd put my money on one side. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. definitely. But I wonder if it'll how it will play out like politically, because like, even though it's kind of a bit of a meme and it's he's not going to jail, it's still a big deal, right? I think the first time this has ever happened to a president.
Yeah, it's a historical first for sure. It has a lot of this American stuff just generally has this. It all feels a bit Disneyland.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because both of us don't live there or something, but it does all feel like a bit like make believe. Like this is all just like a wrestling setup or something.
Yeah, it's very WWE. Yeah. I don't even know why he's being arrested for. Like, I don't even know what he did. I don't even really care. Like,
I mean, the indictments are a bunch of loads of different shit, but this one is for the election interference specifically, which is why there is there's a mugshot of Rudy Giuliani and all that sort of stuff as well.
in what sense did he interfere with elections? Like, what's the?
I don't know. Ask BBC. I don't know.
But like, this is the funny thing is, like, if it was Biden who was being arrested, I'd be Googling like, what did he do? He must have done something insane. But because it's Trump, I just kind of go, oh yeah, it's just part of the political game. They're just trying to make a fool out of him. Like, I don't even really take it seriously. I don't even think, oh, what did he do? I just think he must have done something, but it's probably nothing that the Democrats, major Democrats, haven't done. Probably twice, 3 times as bad. So I don't really take it seriously.
Yeah, it's an extension of the fact that, academia to start off with, then, well, probably journalists before that, then academia, then like the political establishment, then the medical industry have all lost their credence basically over time.
Yeah, no, yeah, and like that's actually like spot on, because that is the significance of this. Like, that, because I still think he's still going to run for president, I presume, but like, it is that, like, it's basically the nail in the coffin of the prestige and authority of the American political institution.
That's the crazy thing, is you think that someone being arrested, a presidential candidate being arrested for election interference, would be like a nail in the coffin. Like, that person is dead to political life. They're never going to run again. They're so screwed. Like, no one's ever going to run, all that sort of stuff. But in this case, with Trump specifically, and maybe even with some other people, maybe this is actually going to help him.
Yeah, like, it's not the death of him; it's the death of the institutions, because it's like they've done this. Like, they've proven themselves to be so, like, just petty, and like weaponizing the legal system, the courts, in such a petty way that they've done whatever Trump did. I don't know what he did, but like, they've done something way worse, which is that they've basically taken any remaining authority in those institutions and just gone like, we don't care.
I legitimately feel like they have the power to just lock him up right now for whatever reason. And the crazy thing is, if that happens, he will likely still win. And then the president is in jail, and then that, like, what credence? Like, there's no like ground for the regime to stand on at that point, Like,
because I was listening to somebody the other day who was talking about they were talking about like the potential of civil war in the United States, and I'm generally a skeptic of this stuff. I think that the conditions for like a real uprising are not really there. But this, at the same time, on a kind of moral and psychological level, it's as if they're constantly undermining their own authority, to the point where they're like, by doing this stuff, to the point where I kind of wonder, like, how much longer can they do this for? Like, can they actually sustain like an order, like a legal and political order, but basically just like explicitly being like so corrupt and so exploitative and opportunistic.
Yeah, and this is another instance where we have to see past the culture war stuff, because this isn't a 2D battle of like Trump versus liberals or something like that. It's way more complex than that, because let's not forget that Trump was the president during the start of COVID, and Trump was the president who started locking down parts of the US, the land of the free, home of the brave, apparently. And actually, to be honest with you, I think it benefits the current status quo, the current zeitgeist, the current regime for Trump to win.
Possibly, yeah.
I think so. I think it benefits them in the long run to do certain other things, to protect certain narratives, of course, but also to do certain things that they might want to do soon.
Yeah, well, like what they can do with that is that they can basically blame him for a bunch of problems while he's in office for the next 4 years or whatever, and then they can kind of delay their own downfall because everything they do undermines themselves. Like everything Biden has done since he got into power has made the authority of the Democrats worse. So it's like undermined it. So it's like not just domestically but also geopolitically. So you kind of wonder, like, if let Trump in their 4 years give the Democrats or like the old Republicans a kind of breather to like regroup and think, okay, how can we come back and do something? So actually Trump getting in might actually buy them time. I think if they got in again, you could be right that like they might just accelerate their own downfall.
The only avenue where Trump actually is a bad thing for the regime is the geopolitical situation of Ukraine, pretty much.
Yeah, fair.
The other things like, Israel being a very strong and powerful partner to the US, along with stuff like potential, like, another round of, COVID and that sort of stuff. Trump will go along with that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It's just the Ukraine stuff that he'll pull back on, and that could be why they're not thinking straight and they're doing this stupid shit, because they're like so hell bent. They're so hell bent on that. I actually, when you think about it, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there, because like the more they persist with the Ukraine situation, the more they undermine themselves in the long run. But I think they're worried about basically going to the negotiating table with Putin, because it will be seen as the real end of the kind of Fukuyama order, because it'll basically it'll basically be like it's over. Like Russia has interfered in Syria, he stopped that. He's interfered in Ukraine, and he's stopped what you want to do there. Like it's geopolitically, like domestically maybe not over, but geopolitically, like it's over.
Right, and exactly. This is what I'm trying to urge us to do when I say let's step over the culture war stuff, because the culture war stuff is, liberals are this and conservatives are this and blah 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 blah. But the real like geopolitical like crux of the issue is this could switch us from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, from the view of history, and this is getting more philosophical. The view of history is a linear thing where we're approaching this liberal utopia, for example, to something that's more multipolar, something that's a bit more complex than we have right now.
Yeah. I think they're so worried about that moment kind of being officialized, which will be officialized by the negotiating table with Putin. That they're just like doing anything they can to delay that, basically, and they can't think straight because of that. So they really are fucked, actually. Like I wouldn't want to be in their position. I wouldn't want to be like a leading Democrat over the next 3-4 years. Like I would like I don't sympathize with them because they put themselves in this position, but like I would just hate to be them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Would hate to be
them. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you like a short story. I went around to my parents' house the other day, and my dad looks at me and he goes, "What's a turf?" And actually, like being an autist and knowing these things, I was like, "Oh, it's a trans exclusionary radical feminist." Who doesn't know that? Of course.
I actually didn't know the.
Okay,
I knew...
okay, cool. Nice to confirm that I'm that much more of a believer than you are. That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, like I knew it was basically like a feminist that wasn't on board with the trans stuff, but I didn't realize I didn't know the exact words for the anachronism or whatever it's called. So yeah, so I'm just kind of like, I'm like an old person. I don't know the cool things. I wish I was more like that, actually, because that's actually a better way to live. But yeah, but that's interesting that he didn't know the he didn't know it. Like he didn't even know it was a feminist. He didn't know anything about it.
No, it was. Well, okay, to start with, he was like, well, I read it on the Daily Mail for a start. I was like, okay, cool. As you can probably imagine, my dad's like peak gammon, basically, like True Blue, all that good stuff. But the interesting thing is, I just sort of that's all I had to say, and he sort of went off on a tirade about, you know, basically he listed like all the gammon talking points like one by one, and I just found it very interesting as a, you know, as much as I love my dad, it's just a very just an interesting experiment, because it was like, it's so interesting how these things are connected.
And like, what do you mean by gammon talking points? Because like, a lot of probably American people listening to this won't know what that means.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the, actually we call them, I wouldn't even call them right wing. They're kind of like liberal, right wing, conservative stuff in the UK.
Yeah.
So like the talking points were like, at one point he was talking about people sewing dicks into themselves, and he said something about black people with a chip on their shoulder, all that sort of shit, you know. Which is, I mean, I don't know, as the premier right-wing podcast, I don't know if we necessarily disagree with that, but it's just, I think it's interesting how it serves as kind of containment.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Those are the things you're supposed to get angry about, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that that's like one of the uses, I think, of the woke left, is that they redirect some of the energy towards this kind of really noisy fringe. Although it's not really a noisy fringe, because it's become so central that it's not really a fringe. But I guess even when it's central, it's kind of a clown show. It's kind of bread and circuses in a way. It's kind of a clown show, which
this is honestly what I think it is. I mean, like, it's weird, but the whole, to address the specific TERF point, like the number of people who would like self-define themselves as TERFs, these Sharons of the culture war, these Sharon Gammons of the culture war, like they're such a small minority of the entire population. And the same thing goes for like anyone who's transgender in any sort of way, is that it's such a small part of the population. It's such a distraction.
I do think, though, like if you look at the statistics, like I do think it's used as a distraction politically, but I do also think that it's a big, like, it's something we should pay attention to on the level of like psychohistorical development.
This is exactly the point. This is what I was. I don't think many people this clicked with many people, but this is kind of what I was talking about with Alexander Ebert when he was on my podcast. Is like, yes, I agree with you. Philosophically speaking, the trans movement is one of the most is like the most important of the last few decades. I would agree with you there. But in terms of like the importance we should like attribute to it in the majority of people's lives.
Yeah. Like I think that like as a movement, it's completely wrong and probably harmful to people who are confused, right? But I think I think if you're but I understand the confusion. That's the point. Like I understand the people that are like in that position and they're like, I don't even know what the fuck this is anymore. And especially if you understand like a little bit more about like Lacan and stuff and the symbolic order, it kind of does make sense that we have no idea like what we are. Like this isn't really a given. Like this is more complicated than the more kind of vulgar, pragmatic view kind of it that we're given. On the other hand, though, like I think it's totally irresponsible to be using this confusion to promote like irreversible medical treatments and so on and so forth, and also to like deep pathologize what is clearly like, you know, even if it's an understandable pathology, it's still a pathology. So we, you know, so there's also a debate there to be had. But like in general, I think that like the TERFs annoy me a little bit because I'm like, you've contributed to the destruction of like gender gender roles for so long, and now you're going, oh my god, look at these crazy people. I was like, you fucking created these crazy people.
Radical. This is exactly the women we were talking about with the NHS clap last time. These gooseneck women came in the 50s and 60s and tore down all the established order, and they're surprised now that there's no established order left.
Yeah, exactly. It's
like, well, you can't have it both ways, ladies. Sorry.
Sorry. Like that's why I have no sympathy for them. I just like don't care. Whenever I hear anything about J.K. Rowling or anything, I just fucking scroll through it. I'm like, I don't care. You've brought this up on yourself.
Yeah, it's just this whole mentality. And again, we do complain about them way too much. We're very unfair on them. But the boomers and Gen X are so bad for this. Like, to literally think that line will always go up. To literally think that what supermarket you go to will be the most important thing about you is like insane. And then to be surprised when it comes and bites you in the when commercialism comes and bites you in the ass, and then inflation rates are above 10%.
Yeah.
Don't come complaining to me after that, okay?
Yeah, true. They don't see their own participation in it, though. Like, they don't see.
I think that's the most frustrating part. But that's probably the most frustrating part.
Like the TERFs are they genuinely don't understand that they've contributed to the problem that they're talking about. Like, they genuinely do not get that. Like, it's not like I think they generally don't get it. Like they're not even being cynical. They're like they don't get it. So, which is interesting.
Cool. So anyway, let's move on to something a bit more. Well, I don't know if this is gonna be lighthearted or not, but
oh, this thing, yeah.
So basically, you sent this to me and said, "Oh, we're going halfsies on this, mate." And I was like, "What
the fuck?" You probably have to buy it from China or somewhere too. Like, it looks like
it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
Also,
the noises, the very mechanical noises of it doing its thing.
Yeah. You'd think they would like put in some sort of better noises on it, but anyway.
I guess what? Like, I don't understand. Like, what would be better?
I don't know, but somebody on Twitter sent this to me, and they said, "Will you talk about it on the Schizo podcast?"
Well, here we are.
So this is what we're doing. So if you're listening, I can't remember who it was, but if you're listening, I think their name was Sparta something very Sparta.
Apt, so. Very apt.
It was very. It was a non-name. It wasn't like so. I can't remember. So, but if you're listening, Sparta, yeah, look, we're doing it. And also, it's being played right in front of Trump's face, which is kind of interesting.
That's just the era we're living in, dude. That's the sort of things we are on the forefront of all these sorts of research pieces. Like we are.
Yeah. I don't really have any like hot take on this, though. I just think it's weird and gross and shouldn't be allowed to be made.
I don't know. I always say I've got a hot take on this. I've definitely got a take on this, which is that there is like a sexual arms race going on, basically.
A sexual arms race.
Yes.
That's a good name for like an essay or a book.
Well, stay tuned. You never know. Anyway, so I don't know. Like, I think that there is a sexual arms race going on, and I feel like this comes back to our previous topic: is that the sexual revolution put women in the driving seat of that arms race.
But do you think a woman made this object?
No, I don't. This is my point. This is so OnlyFans and Pornhub and that sort of stuff. That is the feminine side of the sexual arms race, and the male side is like, okay, that's what we're doing then. And this sort of extension of that, which makes it so hyper real and able to completely dismiss any like female involvement whatsoever. This is what you see in front of you here is the male equivalent of women saying, "Oh, now because we have IVF, we literally don't even need sperm to exist," sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is the male version of that. That's my hot take.
Like, it's also it's really male because you can just imagine someone who's like a computer programmer or like an engineer making this, like, and really enjoying the process. Like, how am I going to get the
this is the thing, is like, it's a mechanical object. It's actually very impressive. It's even got a place to put your phone in the top.
Yeah.
Which is the thing.
Okay, stop making it do that, would you? Stop making it. Stop turning the video on. I've had enough of that noise. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. There's there's also, you mentioned IVF, but artificial wombs could be like, it's not sexual necessarily, it's just reproductive, but that could be another way of like men fighting back and saying we don't need women because like we can just take the womb and put it in a.
I mean, 100%. I would go even beyond, because I think like even thinking about it in male and female terms is like you trap yourself within a sort of culture war like framing, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I think this came out in my discussion with Thomas M7 when we did mention Schopenhauer's opinions on the sexual impulse. And if you think about it, if you don't want to be, you know, an acolyte of Jesus or some sort of other supernatural sub-question that's going to allow you to project yourself into the future in a spiritual sense, the way that the Schopenhauerian will projects itself into the future is through the sexual impulse.
Because of reproduction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're like leaving something behind. Yeah.
And what's going on now is like, in some senses, it retards it, like the like birth control, for example. But in some senses, it accelerates it, like the artificial wombs. That does actually accelerate the natural progression, metaphysical projection of someone in the future through their like sexual output, pretty much. And it's interesting, like this arms race is, maybe it's not so much a male and female thing, but maybe it is like a pro-human or anti-human thing. I don't know. But these are some preliminary thoughts I have. It's complex. It's a complex issue.
Yeah, that's no. I think there's something to that. I was listening to somebody recently saying, I think it was Cadell last, talking to someone on a podcast. I can't remember who it was, but they were saying about family creation, about some people, instead of having children, sublimate that into some sort of creative pursuit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, for example, you think of Nietzsche here, right? Nietzsche was pretty much a kind of like celibate pretty much for most of his life, I think. And unless he had syphilis, obviously then he's not, but we don't really know if he had syphilis. But anyway, he didn't get married, basically. He wasn't married and he wasn't some bachelor kind of guy, which means sooner or later you're going to probably be like basically a celibate. And he obviously, you know, wrote so much philosophy, so that was his kind of creative will, right? But then you could think of technology also being that way, and I'm pretty sure people have done it. I don't know who it is, but I'm pretty sure there is theories about that, about like men sublimate a kind of desire to reproduce through technology. That is their creation, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't want to hijack your point too much, but I think it's a very basic philosophical thing, like where, okay, you know, and this is like I don't know, something like a live, laugh, love level bit of philosophy, but like there are you die two deaths. Like there is one death where you're physically buried in the ground, and there is a second death where everyone forgets that you were ever alive.
Yeah.
And in a strange way, the farmer who was in England and is my ancestor, in a way, he's alive through me.
Yeah.
But in another way, like Nietzsche, although he didn't have any children, is alive through his books.
Yeah, he's alive through all the schizos reading them.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting.
Including us.
It's legitimately like an interesting philosophical question. Like the way that, again, this is what Schopenhauer talks about, is like, well, we physically have our physical selves. Now, you can be skeptical about that as much as you want, but there is also this metaphysical dimension, whether you have to choose a metaphysical dimension. And
to add another philosophical angle to that, Peter Sloterdijk has a theory of immunology, and this is a really complicated theory to explain, but it does have to do with the anticipation of death. And although he frames it's to do with the anticipation of being left behind, not you dying yourself necessarily, right, but being left behind by others. So there are, but the ego, he says, he kind of goes against the psychoanalytical understanding of the ego, and he says the ego is formed by being able to be left behind. So being able to be the created thing, of the person who's gone, you know. So there's a sense in which it's almost the opposite, but like in that sense, we are only able to be individuals or individuated, particularly from like the mother, by being left behind. So in that weird way, I kind of wonder what this technology will do, because if we're kind of completely replacing the task of making people with the task of making fucking robots and objects,
exactly.
We might be giving up on that task of like actually creating people who are able to be left behind, if you know what I mean, because there's not really a kind of a human socializing there.
Yeah, it's a really confusing issue, I think.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, like that whole theory is really hard to explain, and I'm not really sure how it fits in, but it felt like something would come out if I brought it up. But yeah.
Oh, and you have to remember, most of our viewers are idiots like me and aren't Slaughterdags. I've never read anything of Slaughterdags, I don't think.
It's really. I have a video on my YouTube channel.
I know. I should. There's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah. Well,
you're watching like the news about Trump's mugshot and like Chinese Psyops to like be reading philosophy and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes the idea of something like legacy understandable.
Yeah,
because,
right. Yeah.
Because you're transcending your immediate position and you're thinking about like what's left behind after you, you know. So it kind of adds something ethical and spiritual to the reproductive focus, you know.
Sure. Well, I guess speaking of the congress between man and woman and what's left behind after you, this was something that I thought was kind of interesting.
Swear I can joke, I see what's on my mind. If I drink, if I smoke, I keep up with the guys, and you see me holding up my middle finger to the world, like your ribbons and your pearls, 'cause I'm not just
There's a theory that this is like a Chinese psyop as well.
100%. I totally buy that theory as well, dude. So,
but like, how is it a Chinese? Like, why would China want to do this?
But hear me out here. Okay, wait. Hopefully I can use it. Okay, so I say this as someone who's actually never been to any Asian nations before, but dude, ignore the fact this blonde girl looks very like, I don't know, Russian probably-ish, but look at the background behind her. That is somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
It's 100%. And then look at like the household environment. That is 100% like a Southeast Asian household environment.
Could be, yeah.
Definitely is, dude. That is not Western like household environment. I'm sorry. It's totally like Bugman, like household environment.
What are they gonna achieve though?
Well, here's the thing, dude. Here's the sticking part, right? So we spoke about this. We spoke about this in Birth Gap.
Oh, right. Yeah. Fucking there's
a problem that people aren't like settling down, number one, but number two, more importantly, having kids.
Yeah.
This is a problem that is not just the case for countries like UK or Ireland, places like that, but it's a problem for places like Asia as well, like China and South Korea and
Yeah.
This is a problem.
So there's a kind of biopolitical side.
I 100% buy it. And the thing is, right, so it is way more effective for government agencies to be working on exacerbating the social issues of foreign nations if they want to bring them down through things like TikTok than it is like, what are they going to do, bug hotels and shit? Like, we're in a different century now, dude.
Yeah.
Like, one viral TikTok is way more effective than an entire department of people trying to bring a president down, for example.
It's just that like you could imagine that coming out of the West, because that's so typical to what so many young women post online. Like, you know, it's less cringe normally, but it's basically that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like they don't even need to psyop us. Like we've kind of psyop ourselves already.
That's true. That's why I don't have a lot of hope for the West. But what I'm saying is, like, this is the future of psychological warfare. It's not in bugging hotels and leaking Stormy Daniels documents with ex-presidents and da-da-da-da.
Yeah. I wonder if she's getting paid by like Xi Jinping.
Oh, dude, this lady, she's probably from Essex. She probably was working as an English teacher in China somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm doing some social media work for some money on the side.
I could see that happening. So I had a friend who was
this is why I feel insane, because it sounds so crazy to you saying you're like, oh, this could be a psyop as like an interesting side, but I legitimately think it is.
Yeah, no, because
there's some English teacher teaching in China somewhere. He's been doing some social media work on the side. You know, it's totally it.
Well, yeah, no, because I was saying, like, I had a friend working in China doing teaching as well, and there was some problem with her like passport or something, or her visa, a very minor bureaucratic thing. But the police came in like really hard, like into the school with guns and stuff, and she had to go to this, police station and have this big long conversation with them, and it was really overkill. So I kind of thought like I could see them putting you in that situation. Oh, it's a problem with your visa, and then like,
gonna come shoot a TikTok for us.
Kind of starting the conversation like, oh, it's a problem with your visa. Maybe we can make that go away and give you a bit of extra cash in this. I could see that happening. But like, other than the psyop side to it, like, I found that video interesting because it was like, as many people on Twitter were saying, like, does she associate being single with not having housework?
Yeah, right? You definitely have to do chores if you're single.
100%.
I can say that from experience.
Yeah. Like, it's a weird assumption to make that, and I think actually this is kind of the problem of today's society. And I think that like a lot, because I think a lot of people, and like, it's also due to economic reasons, the cost of living, particularly with rent, is so expensive that like a lot of young people just stay at home longer to save money because it's just so expensive, and if you've lived at home without living up by your own, like until you're like until you're like in your mid-20s or something, you might actually have the impression that like you don't know what it's actually like to live on your own. So you're like, you've kind of got this weird, almost like like women in the Victorian era, for example, or even before that, would have been in the household, and then they would get married off, and they wouldn't leave the household until they went into the married sphere. So but like, with obviously, more individualism, and people didn't have their marriages. So, like with women just going to the workforce, like all that stuff, they were more likely to have experience living, in a shared flat with some of their friends, or even on their own in a flat, for some time before they eventually got married and had a married household. But I think because of the cost of living today and shit, you actually do have a kind of weird return to that, where it's like a lot of people don't live on their own or with anyone else until they're in like a relationship. They don't have to be married, but until they're like in a relationship where they're living with their partner in a flat, because it's easier to afford it if there's two people, right? If you get like a 1-bedroom flat, 2 people, it's affordable, where it might be affordable if it's them on their own. So they actually have very little experience of the world, like being single or just living on their own. So it's possible that they actually do think crazy shit about, oh my god, if I'm single, I won't have to do housework or something.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that the laundry fairy does my socks. So
like, there's a kind of girl boss image of the world that a lot of young women,
girl bosses definitely have to do laundry. I'm sorry.
but you see, how do young women get tricked into thinking like be a complete work slave and it is hyper individualistic and like reject all, you know, community or family or relationships. Like they get sold this weird image.
It's the same. It's the same world where people think that having their grandfather's name is that having their own name. Like,
but like they get sold this image of you know the single independent life, right? Which is like so detached from reality that it's at the point where it's like, if you're a single woman living in a city working for a corporation, you'll be liberated from menial tasks like washing your dishes. You know, it's like, no, you won't, you know, or you will be, because in London, for example, most, even like very cheap flats, shared flats, you'll often have very cheap, you know, like immigrant labor coming in to clean it once every week or two.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. They always do a really shit job, and you have to clean up anyway. So,
but they still have that, and also I've lived with people that, like, you know, they don't cook. They do wash their clothes. It's like the only kind of thing they do. They don't cook at all. They just go to work or college or whatever it is. They come back and they buy some food, or they order it. So they don't do dishes. They don't cook. They don't actually do these like traditional domestic tasks. So it's actually not that far off a situation where it's like, if you are a single young person in a big city, you will be liberated from like menial tasks. It actually is kind of going that way, only because of cheap immigrant labor and so forth.
So what you're trying to tell us is you're a turf, Raymond.
What I'm trying to tell you is that this woman's idea of being single and not having to do housework is actually not as inaccurate as people on Twitter were saying, now that I've thought about it.
Okay.
But, but it's still all degenerate, and it's a psyop.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know how long we spent now talking about fucking housework and shit, and I'm already bored, man. It's fucking dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you're a woman, you've been given the gift of life, and that is your place. I'm sorry. I can't.
Okay, well, all right. Skip on to the next.
Yes. I just discard everything you said. People. Okay, cool.
Skip it. Bored of this guy. No, I don't care. I'm bored too. I was just filling the silence. So.
Okay.
Hunter Biden, at that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared, right? It's like, there's nothing. First of all, it's Hunter Biden, right? It's not Joe Biden. But even if whatever scope of Joe Biden's corruption is, like if we could just go down that rabbit hole endlessly and understand that he's getting kickbacks from Hunter Biden's deals in Ukraine or wherever else, right? Or China. It is infinitesimal compared to the corruption we know Trump is involved in. It's like a firefly to the sun, right? I mean, like there's just, it doesn't even stack up against Trump University, right? Trump University as a story is worse than anything that could be in Hunter Biden's laptop, in my view, right? Now that doesn't answer the.
I love the look on their faces in this. I'm not a huge fan of these boys. Are you?
No, I've actually I've met Constant at some point.
Yeah, like
I was at one of the comedy. Well, it's weird because I don't know, these people come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're talking heads and they're comedy, like, and he did like a comedy gig in London. And I saw the comedy gig and he was there and that sort of stuff. But
was it in that place in Bethnal Green?
Yeah, Bethnal Green Comedy Club, yeah.
And it's got like a ping pong table in the front.
Yeah.
I've been there a few times as well.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like London is actually quite a small place. Well, it's not small; it's huge. But like all of these people.
Oh, 100%. I agree. Yeah, it's 100% nice. Yeah.
I've bumped into a few like popular people, like these kinds of. They're all in London.
That's interesting. So, who on the weird internet side of things? Who have you met?
The guy who runs, is it not Spiked? Yeah, Spiked. Do you know Spiked?
I know Spike, but I don't know the guy who runs it.
Anyway, he's not that famous, but Spiked is pretty big. I've met him before. I'm not mad on Spiked either, but I've met Andrew Doyle.
Oh
yeah. I've seen him. Same place, the comedies place. But anyway, onto fucking Sam Harris.
This is so. I mean, these autists don't really give it away because they don't have any reaction to anything really. But basically,
they kind of do though. They're like, "Oh my god, are we fucking hearing this shit?"
Is the most. So I don't know. I'm going to give my own story with Sam Harris here, but like, I was definitely one of the edgy atheists back in the like Hitchens, Dawkins, Harris sort of era. You know, I was definitely like completely bought into that shit, and you know. I don't know. Sam Harris is pretty good. Like, I don't know. He had like Waking Up was a really good book. Free Will is a really good book if you want the materialist case against the belief in free will and that sort of stuff. But ever since like 2016, ever since, like a lot of people, like a lot of like commentators, like he just went off the deep end. I don't know, man. Like, so it's so bizarre. Like, and it's very strange as a like an atheist guy. He's using almost like religious allegorical language to describe his hatred of Trump.
Yeah. But it shows like Trump derangement syndrome is
like what? It's some financial scam, right? Supposedly, like some financial scam, and it's like, well, we're saying that dead children in someone's basement is a firefly compared to the sun, which is Trump University. Do you understand how insane you are, dude?
It's Trump derangement syndrome.
What happened to these people? This guy was this is a smart man. This is an intelligent man.
Yeah. But it's going to force us to have to ask, what do we mean by intelligent? Because like, because clearly intelligent people are also retarded.
Intelligence is not a virtue.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a virtue. It's just like a form of calculation.
Train a very, very intelligent dog to do very horrible things.
Yeah. Well, he has advocated for torture. He's not only advocated for torture. He said that in order to alleviate the torturer from being kind of from feeling guilty or ashamed from torturing, that we can give the person who's being tortured pharmaceutical drugs to numb their facial expression, their ability to scream, plead, cry, to make the torturer feel better. He's literally written this. Like, he's insane. He's always been insane. Like, and this is like back in 2006. He's a psycho. He's completely insane. Like, yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. Like when you lean that far into, because at the end of the day, he's a materialist, he's a liberal, and he's a utilitarian.
Yeah, he's a very utilitarian thinker. Like he's literally
that far into that stuff. You start saying absurd things like, "Oh, let's numb the victim's pain so the torture doesn't feel too bad."
Yeah. Like, that's way worse than being like, "Let's torture people."
Ignore the fact that the Bidens have weird showers with their nieces, so that we don't endanger liberal democracy, for example.
Or even from a security perspective, it's like, the guy gives his laptop to like some random fucking computer repair shop.
There we go. We're back to Hillary Clinton's emails all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Why is there an exception here?
Yeah.
Oh, but no, Trump University is the sun, and this is the fucking firefly. Ugh. It's insane. It's insane.
And also, I hate his constant need to use dying babies as like this kind of like, it's like his trolley problem. His trolley dilemma is just like a room full of babies about to be blown up or something. It's like, why does he always uses this? And also, like, he's a good example why we should just abandon speculative ethics. Like, in this situation, what would you do? Sometimes that could be helpful, but like
while we're on the topic,
it's just stupid.
So you felt that it was obviously wrong to force people to get the mRNA vaccine for COVID, right? Now, I would grant you, certainly in retrospect, that seems true, but if we change a few of the variables, I think your ethical intuitions and certainly political intuitions would totally change. So you make it a much more obviously effective vaccine that really does block transmissions, like a sterilizing vaccine. You make it a much more dangerous virus. You make it a virus that's actually preferentially killing kids rather than old people, right? So now we're in an environment where like you're deciding not to get vaccinated is putting my kids at risk, right? Do you get to make that choice, right? And you might say, oh yes, yeah, I should be able to make that choice. It's my body, you know, but dial up the deadliness of the pathogen, you know, give us something like, you know, airborne Ebola that incubates for a month. You don't know you have it, and you walk around spreading it, and it's got, you know, a 75% fatality rate, and it's mostly killing kids.
There we go again with the kids.
That choice anymore. I mean, then literally the cops come in and
this shit is like, this is the Joe, like the Hunter Biden having kids in the basement thing was like one thing. It's like, that's a bit dodgy, like that's a bit weird, you do about democracy, but this is like so on the nose in terms of like delusion. I think it's delusion. And the crazy thing is, this is supposed, like, this is the science man. This is the epistemological science man coming through with a hypothetical to support his scenario. Like, it's so fucking weird.
All he's saying is, if the situation was completely different, we'd have to respond to it differently. Like, that's literally like no one's arguing against that.
If he's in a debate with a creationist, yeah, if the situation was totally different, we'd have to do things differently.
Exactly. That's all he's saying. And he's acting as if he's got this great trump card on all of these kind of mythologized anti-vaxxers. But like, his mindset is very much in the security state mindset. Like, everything for him is kind of done through a kind of security state angle.
Well, this is where you get away from the fact that he's like what he is philosophically, but ultimately he is like politically illiberal.
Well, and not just that, he was basically a kind of propagandist for the neocons during the Iraq War, in the sense to say,
okay, so I want to get away from the fact. So when I say liberal, I mean someone who's bought into the zeitgeist, someone who's bought into the regime. Like,
yeah, you don't mean like
neocons are part of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair, but like
American liberal is different.
Yeah, but like his job back then was to say, we are the rational, decent people, and they're like the not just barbarians, but like they're not like, they're not civilized in the sense that they're not up to date with modern science. That was kind of his big thing. Like, they don't have this completely scientific, utilitarian, positivistic view of the world. So therefore, like, they might think free will is a thing. It's like, you know, barbarians. Like, this is actually how he thinks. And
didn't you read the book I wrote? That's 90 pages long. I thought my books were short, man.
yeah, but like did you mention Sam Harris in your book?
No.
Okay.
Where have I mentioned Sam Harris?
I thought you meant your book. You mean Sam Harris's book? Yeah, never mind.
Zarathustra essays that Cadell last published, I roasted him in that, basically.
Okay, I thought I remembered you writing about him. So no, I'm just.
It's in the Cadell last stuff. It's in the philosophy portal stuff somewhere.
Oh, okay, but what was I saying? I remember him coming up with these arguments about like nuclear weapons, and he was saying, you know, he was saying, yes, that America is really bad for dropping a nuclear weapon, and we have loads of nukes, is bad. But could you imagine? And I guess this was related to the whole weapons of mass destruction. Like, what if Saddam Hussein got weapons of mass destruction? And he was like, and he was saying, what if ISIS got a weapon, a nuke? Could you only imagine the catastrophe? And like, it kind of works, because there is something scary about the idea of ISIS getting a nuke. But the way he framed it was like, he used to just say, could you imagine if ISIS could cobble together a nuke, like as if a nuke is something you can build just like in a desert with some
in a garage,
empty car part in your garage. It's like there's a reason there's an international infrastructure regulating the sales parts and also the technical knowledge of putting together these things. And there's a reason there's only a handful of superpowers who have them, because there's a big conspiracy of all the superpowers to not let smaller countries get these nukes. And it's scary to think ISIS could have a nuke, but it's amazing that he could just imagine, like he can take everything so out of context that he could just imagine, like he could justify basically total American military domination of the entire Middle East based on the complete abstract possibility that a ragtag group of terrorists who were very vicious and were very destructive, but nonetheless, a ragtag group of terrorists could cobble together his mind belongs in like an X-Men film or something.
I feel like I have like the kind of, I just have like a small brain opinion on this. I can't get past the fact that empirical evidence man is using a fictional scenario to justify his point.
Yeah, fair.
Can't get past it. I just can't get past that. Like,
and also he's saying that the people who are actually empirically correct about all the COVID stuff,
yeah, exactly. Imagine if it wasn't,
are dangerous.
Dude, imagine if Jesus was your Lord and Savior. Imagine if Muhammad was the prophet of God. Like, dude, do you understand what you're saying, you idiot?
Yeah. I know it's incredible, and like
a lot of respect for that guy. I don't know, but it does kind of raise the question of like, well, someone responded to me when I got loads of likes on the tweet I made. It's called a hypothetical, man. Do you not understand what it means? Like,
really?
What do you think? I actually hate philosophical hypotheticals.
Yeah, I'm not mad at them either. I think they're very, they're a very bad use of rationalistic thinking. Like, because it's completely abstracted.
Situation that's not a real situation. Like, that is the scenario in which I am an empiricist. Like, I do follow Hume in that respect. Like,
fair, yeah. I'm not an empiricist necessarily, but I like. There's a reason you don't get classical rationalism like Plato and Aristotle thinking in this way. It's because they don't think that thinking like this is just this completely abstracted speculative situations. Like, they don't think in terms of situations. Like, I don't know if you've seen the show 24.
I've never seen
drama.
I've seen adverts for it, but that's pretty much it. So.
It was like, I'm pretty sure some leftists actually, but like I'm pretty sure some leftists have done some really good criticisms of this, because it was such a propaganda show in the sense that like it would come up with this
justifying like the military stuff, basically, the US.
Yeah, but it would come up with these ludicrous situations where some like nobody terrorist somehow has this like unbelievably powerful bioweapon,
right?
And like for no reason whatsoever, they're just planning to release it, and everything will be done within 24 hours. So there was a real, like, every episode was like tick tock, like in between the credits, it was like tick tock. It was like they were really trying to lure you into a sense of panic. And I thought it was a perfect show for like the kind of security era, state of emergency kind of society, because that's another thing Sam Harris does. He uses these speculative scenarios, not just to think. Like, I'm okay with speculation in the sense of like, you could say, could you imagine if there was another universe like our universe where everything was the same but slightly different? It's like, it's kind of like pot smoking weed kind of talk. It's fun, you know what I mean? And maybe there's some philosophical value to it, but you're not saying, could you imagine if these people next door were like planning on killing us all in the next hour? What are we going to do? And it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't think that's very likely. Fuck you. You know?
Exhales huge breath from a joint. Imagine if COVID was like Ebola, man.
He's basically like
shit. Like,
he's just a pothead with like, it was just like in a state of panic, you know, like the whole time, like, yeah.
The whole worldview is falling apart.
But like and like that was the value of him as a kind of propagandist for the neocons back in the day, because he was a rationalistic, smart, kind of softly spoken guy, but he wasn't like Bill O'Reilly where he'd come on your screen and be like, you're a fucking terrorist, you're gonna kill your children.
Right, and he's not a comedian. He's not a comedian like Bill O'Reilly as well. He's like
yeah, but like he would basically do the same thing in like forcing upon you a state of like panic and urgency in which you can't think, and you're just like, I have to agree with you right now or else I'm guilty of like participating in some deadly crime.
Logical impropriety, basically.
Yeah, but he wouldn't like act. He wouldn't act hysterically. He just comes up with like ludicrous speculative situations. But it's the same thing basically.